Listen to another of the great sayings of Jesus. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Now, that is found in several places throughout the Gospels. Jesus made that appeal to his disciples several times. It's recorded in several of the Gospels. If you want to look it up, it's in Matthew 16. That's a good place to look. And it's so interesting because sometimes when we're talking about how one becomes a Christian, we talk about some of the specifics like faith and repentance and confession and baptism and living the life for Christ. All that's, of course, absolutely important and has its place. But not so much do we sometimes talk about this most basic thing that really underlies and continues throughout all of those faith responses that we make to the gospel. And it's this call to discipleship, which has three elements: denying self, taking up the cross, and following Jesus. Now, here in just a few minutes, I'm just going to barely skim the surface of this, and I'd like to preach on it for the church where I am for months and months, and I think we could do that. But just a few thoughts quickly. First of all, to deny self. This is the essence of what Jesus did when he came from heaven. Philippians 2 is a great section about that, those first few verses in that chapter, how he emptied himself. He was equal with God, but he became a human being. He humbled himself. He was a servant, and he was obedient even unto death. So Jesus sets the pattern, and then he calls us to follow that same pattern in denying ourselves. And let's be honest. Yeah, sometimes random things, bad things happen to us. Other people inflict hurt upon us. But would you agree with me that most of the problems I have are self-inflicted? If you're from the Vietnam era, you may remember the cartoon character Pogo, and his famous saying was, "We have met the enemy, and he is us." And it's my self-centeredness, selfishness, self-serving attitude, watching out for self, that gets me in trouble more than anything else, really. And so when Jesus talks about denying self, letting faith in him and an awareness of him and getting in step with him lead you to your first big decision, is to deny self. I would say there's a lot of people that have in one way gone through the necessary actions and responses to become Christians, but have never really challenged themselves. I know, well, for me, once I discovered this, I now basically almost every day have to challenge myself. Is this what Keith wants to do? Is this Keith's will? Or am I denying myself? Am I putting my wants and pleasures and what I think are my needs in front of what God really wants me to do? And so he says, and I think that's just an open-ended thing that we need to keep on thinking about as long as we want to be his disciples, to deny self. To take up the cross, obviously, well, you know, right now there's some people being crucified over in the Middle East because they say they believe in Jesus. But for most of us, we're not going to have to go through the excruciating pain that Jesus did. I don't think that's what Jesus is saying here. Jesus' mission, his very ministry, the reason he came to earth was to die on that cross. And I think what he's saying here to us is God has a purpose for you. What's your mission? What's your cross to bear? And that doesn't mean that you've got a difficult person in your life or you've got even a physical ailment. I think it means, what is your purpose? And are you going to go and fulfill and complete your cross just like I went to my cross, or I'm going to go to my cross when he said these words? So take up your cross daily, he says in some of the places, and finally to follow me. And you know, we sing the songs, the footsteps of Jesus, they make the pathway glow, and there's all these wonderful songs and a lot of verses about following Jesus. I like the one that's in 1 John where it just simply says, if we're going to be his, we must walk as Jesus walked. And that's an enormous challenge. The biggest problem initially with that is he was perfect. We're not. He, although he was completely human, he had his divine power, and that helped him. He could have still stumbled. He didn't. And so at best, we're always going to be faltering, stumbling behind him. But that's the way to go. Jesus said one time, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And we need to figure out and forever be figuring out, what is that way and what does it really mean to follow Jesus? Now, tomorrow, in the last of this short series, I'm going to continue from that thought, right out of deny self, take up the cross, and follow Jesus into an additional thought that I think you'll find interesting, challenging, fun in a way, and I hope you'll join us at that time. God bless you.